So the next thing is now to build the front section. So here's the front section here. Comes with the rods, stainless steel rods. You can see that. So basically they just thread, I don't know if you can see that. They just thread right into the top. When I'm putting these in for final assembly, I use red Loctite on these. I put the red Loctite down in the hole, spin them in, get them down in tight by hand. And then what the trick is, I will take the rod with some soft jaws in my vise. I'll stick the, hey, what's up, man? Hey, how's it going? I will stick the rod in the vise. Thank you. Thank you. Stick the rod in the vise and spin the piece. Tighten it down, spin the piece until they're good and snug tight. For raw assembly, I just put them in by hand and tighten them up, make sure we're in good position. Then we're gonna build this front section. So it goes, you see that okay?
Yeah, let me zoom in.
We're gonna go
this up a little bit.
Outer spring, inner spring. In the inner spring, you'll see this this little step here. So the inner spring sits right on that step. Outer spring sits right down in its hole down here. And then we have a top spacer that's stainless steel. Sits down in that inner spring. Now I'll show you. So here's that spacer here. Sits right down in that hole. And then the top spring. And that's pretty much it for the front section. And the front section. So again, for final assembly, there's some 1/2" ID brass, oil light brass fittings that will fit right up in this hole right here, and you'll tap those in. And then again, I like to take my hone and I like to run that hole so that when these rods go into that brass, they go through like butter, like a hot knife going through butter. Like you don't want any binding at all.
Yeah.
You know, just a slide through, and that sets that up.
So for the mock-up purposes, we're not going to put the oil light bushings in.
Right.
Because it's all going to come apart.
It's all going to come apart again when we get ready for final finish. It's got a nice little ding we're going to have to fix. So that's pretty much how that's going to go. Now,
just turn it over, nobody will see it.
So now to compress the springer to get the tension on it, we use a couple different things. We use a cheap Harbor Freight tool bender.
It's a pipe die.
It's a pipe die. And the radius of this is a really nice radius. It actually matches our front tube very nice. And we've built a little, I don't know what you'd even call it.
It's an insert.
It's just a little insert
that
goes in that tube die that we use to put the pressure on this. We use this big clamp here. And the way we built that little adapter, it fits right on our deal.
So it's an adapter that fits in the die piece, and then the other side is sized to the end of the clamp.
Sometimes I can do these by myself, and we're going to see if I can do it this time.
See how talented he is.
Without destroying everything. So that guy.
So if you're doing final assembly with finished parts, you're going to want some help.
Yeah, and then like I said, we'll use our leather strap to protect all the
show them where
finished parts.
Point to where the leather strap will go.
The leather strap sit right in here, in between the piece and the
die.
So then you line up the front of that sucker right there, so your top springs can still get in.
The other thing too, and we're not going to be able to show you, but on the top part of the C-clamp, we actually use a little piece of wood.
Yeah, on a final assembly we will.
Because it can't be too wide or you impede the springs sitting down in the recess. So you can see we're right now where he just put a little pressure on the clamp. You can hear the springs pop in. So
yeah,
he's in.
I'm rotating it up now, putting some pressure on the springs. And I'll go about, probably right there. And then I like to start to fit the front rockers in. And that one's going in pretty good. And this one is going right in too. And we'll see how close I am. So there's my holes lining up right there. I like to take my front bolt and get that in there.
Spin your clamp down a little bit so your
Yeah.
screw head drops. There you go.
Yeah. So that's kind of holding that. This is always, you know.
And this is
gotta
kind
line
of the
this up.
hardest part
There it
right here
goes.
is just getting the alignment of
We call this
sec-
the danger zone, because this is when this thing would pop apart and
Yeah,
parts are going to go everywhere.
And that's
but you
just-
can see that sucker went right in.
That's just because you got all the pressure on the springs.
Yeah. So now, with that one being locked in, we're in a good place now.
But
So this
still,
one's got
still be
line.
careful here because
Yeah,
this.
don't bounce it around and
Yeah.
just move slow.
And sometimes getting these second pins in is a little bit difficult, but if you're just patient and get the alignment correct, they will go right in.
Yep, that's in.
And he just got that one in.
So it's a little snug, so I'll just give it a little tap. Throw that on the threads. And that sucker is going right in. So that's in. So that's the lower section all put together. Now